Hello. It's me. I'm doing something different. So the goal today is a thing I haven't really discussed about before, which is discuss music I've done. I really thought it'd be fun to review things, and this has been on my list for a while, where it's always just like, I really should talk about the things I've done, and like, the process that goes behind this, in case people are interested, and I've just never found the way to do it by myself, so I was just like, heck it, we're just gonna stream it. I'm tired of looking at a script and filling myself with dread every time I try to, like, talk. So I'm gonna talk with friends and just go over stuff instead. So, plan is we kind of go in order that I've released stuff. So you see we have some starting pieces here up top, very fancy, and we will just kind of load more as we go. Alright, so we're gonna stop that and we're gonna go to the first piece and just start playing that instead. We're kicking back with Blast Man from Mega Man 11. I was gonna say 10, and that's a lie. This is Mega Man 11, where this is the first thing I ever did. We're gonna just kind of have that play, and I'll give some backstory. Let me just, loop. Oh, it's gonna loop real awkwardly, too. Unless, oh yeah, there's no clean cut here. Oh well, hit it. Hit the beat. There we go. So, yeah, backstory. I use Reaper by Knuckles software. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And they've been the GOAT. The whole reason why I even took this up as my doll of choice was because they offer a month-long trial for free. Like, all features there, completely unlocked. And they have a massive video tutorial library. Like, every feasible thing they can do, it's there. Like, from the basic to the minute. It's amazing how much they have there. And it's a non-subscription thing. You know what I really hate as a hobbyist music composer? Is, like, you look at all the other stuff where they're just like, if you want to buy this professional grade audio software, it is like $60 a month. And I was like, bruh, I'm like putting out a song or two tops per month at max. And you want me to pay $60 for that? Heck no. No. That seems really bad. So I saw the tutorial and the cheap price, which is actually just $6 per 2 versions. Right now, I'm on my second version of it because I bought it in its 6.0 family of things. Right now, it's in the lower end of the 7.0. And I was like, yeah, I did nothing but hit the video books for 2 weeks. Just watching a bunch of things, learning how to make notes appear in this. And I was like, you know what? After 2 weeks, I'm sold. I'm just buying it. I'm going to see how it goes. Do I have any subscriptions or do you own anything? So I have 0 musical subscription services. I'd much rather have stuff like fully licensed for use on a timeless fashion. I am so afraid if I had to pay for a subscription for something that I would just burn money if I ever took like any sort of break for like a month. Because I did that earlier this year when Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth came out. And I was just like, goodbye, any other hobbies. I'm playing a funny RPG for a bit. And imagine just knowing I see it in my bank account later. It's just like, whoop, goodbye $30 for this thing. And I would just be so concerned. You know how bad that feels if you're just like, I'm not using the thing? Well, I say that, and you know, you have video services that just kind of sit in the back burner, but it's different when it's something you're like determined to create something out of, and you just look and you're just like, it's gone. That money is gone and I have nothing to show for it. So I was like, I'm just gonna buy everything. It's either gonna be a free instrument I can download, or it can be a thing I buy once and I have. So that was my goal. Of course, when you start, you have like no money. And that's another reason why a sound font remix was so up my alley. Because it's just like, I can I can get sounds that I want and just kind of cop them for a bit. Just like, sound fonts exist all over the internet. and they're nostalgic noises people already can resonate with. So what if I just take the sound fonts of one of the most important games in my childhood, being Mega Man X on the Super Nintendo, and just be like, I'm using that. That's a noise I know how to beep boop with. So yeah, I just kind of grabbed that, and we just started figuring out what to do. I was just like, here, what's a thing I like that feels like it could be better done? I say better, but I definitely, no. I did it with heart, and my idea was, let's go to Mega Man 11, whose soundtrack, actually, I was listening to it again today to go into this, kind of like refresh my brain, and it's a soundtrack I've increasingly liked melodically, like structurally. I think a couple of the Robot Masters are really good. I obviously Blast Man because I picked him, but there's some other songs that are like legitimately, I think, bangers. And in my opinion, the soundtrack's biggest shortcoming is that the choice of synth that they use blends in all together a lot. I don't think it's distinct enough besides some certain sound cues like Tundra Man's like ice echo, like that metal pipe like gong noise that is very much a like an ice look at the cold kind of noise. Besides some stuff like that, I feel like bam, it just blends in. So obviously my brain goes, let's just put it to the Mega Man X sound font. Except like there's so much I had to do to know like figure things out. So first off, like the way I typically do things is that I figure out the BPM and everything like down here near my little head, right? And with that, I just like would slap in an audio track where you just like insert new track and you just get an MP3 from your computer and you just drag it right in here. And you go like, boom, here's my audio file, right? And you just like listen to the song a bunch on any old music player you have. And you just have to figure out the BPM just by ear. Like you can tap to set the BPM down here. And that's just me just tip-tapping away the whole time. And you get a rough guesswork because, you know, you're human. You're not going to be able to perfectly replicate that BPM just by ear. So you probably get within like a range of 4 to 5 digits off from the actual BPM. So yeah, drag it in the Reaper. And then you start like trying to listen with the metronome on because you can turn this thing on. And you just start like, hear it ticking. Ooh, I was getting some echo there. I wonder if that was anything else for that. Why am I breaking? All right, give me a second. I want to be sure metronomes can be heard. What was that doing? All right, now it seems fine. But yeah, you turn on the metronome, turn that down. Yeah, and you start hearing the little tick-tock, right? Like just the rhythm. So you're trying to follow the time bar, and you pick different spots around it where you're just like, all right, the beginning sounds like just fine, right? What is up with that? I must have done something to that like start that made it echo weird. I must have somehow borked my song. Just dragging it around. Oopsie. But so that's another thing with trying to set BPM by ear is you can start it and you're just like a little bit off. Say you're like a count or two off on the thing. Like instead of 152, say it was 153. So the first 30 seconds, you're just like, this is fine. This is sounding like it's on track. And you go along, it's like say you're behind a vehicle at a light and you're both waiting to turn and your vehicle has a certain cadence to its blinker and you think you're in line with the vehicle in front of you and then they get out of whack. Like they go slightly faster or slightly slower and you get out of sync. The same thing happens with music. So you jump further ahead and you're like, wait, you're not starting on the beat anymore. I must just be slightly off. And then you have to correct it. And what's even crazier through my experience is that sometimes, this is a clean number because I like to work in clean numbers, but some BPMs for game songs I've covered have been in like the decimal points. And like, that drives me nuts when you're like, oh, It's not 152.0. It is 151.78. And you're just like, this is insane. What were they doing in the studio that makes them want to do it at the BPM? I just want to be able to replicate your music by ear. I have to create my own MIDI file and figure out what's going on. And you have these insane BPMs to work with. Anyways, so let me do one slight, if my screen flickers, excuse me here. We're going to be able to have it so we can see the windows. So the big thing with composing, especially young Korshel had to figure out, was like knowing how to do things and making MIDI grids. Like, you start with a thing, right? You know, that's actually a pretty decent question. If they're just like, yeah, if we do it slightly off, maybe they'll know it's me. Like, this is how I put my stamp on it. So, like, way back in the day, I'm way more used to doing this. But this was like a Herculean task, making things together. Were you slightly off? What are you compared to you? Sorry, I gotta zoom in. It must be that. I must have dragged it forward. There we go. But to make different things, say my MP3 exists on a non-existent track that is up here. Just like, boom, Blast Man is up here, and I've dialed in what the thing. Oh, man. That'd be really funny if I just did that and slightly sped it up. You know, note for the future. I will keep that in mind for Korshel Valent and his favorite number. So we got our theoretical non-existent MP3 up here. And I'm just like having it open, and you get your little MIDI grid of what it looks like, the working Reaper. And this is such a basic, pure joy, being able to like line up notes. This is... Yeah, all right, this is on the 32 grid. I had to look at that. I haven't looked at this song in actually a year and a half. I started working on this about 2 years ago, if I haven't said so, like Reaper. And I made this like 2 Julys. Julys of like 2022 is when I started working on this song. So I had to make sure my brain could just decipher what younger Korshel was doing back then. So the main way I like figure stuff out is you have your MP3, right? And you make your track of what you're going to do. And you slow down the song once you figure out the BPM. So like, we know the full normal speed, right? Like, you get that going on. And you're just like, oh, that went on too fast for me to be able to figure it out by ear. So you just go and you're just like, what if I just like cut it in half? So you get to it and you're just like, we're going to make it like the 75. I'm going to half it, right? And you go really slow now, because now I can listen to each note one at a time. And this is when all the other melodic nonsense is going on in the song, because you have like the MP3 and it's a full song, right? There's multiple parts happening at the same time. So this is my first time trying to listen to something and put notes on the screen to make it work like in line, while there's all this other nonsense. There's a lot of like arpeggio stuff going on in Blast Man that I have to figure out to make work in the same moment. And it was quite a bit when I was first doing this. And there's some things now compared to back then. Like, I consider this song a majestic miracle, but something that really gets me now is that there's just the fact that like there's two things. There's no modulation and there's no pitch bending. Like, because I was so new to this, you don't realize the thing that makes notes sound nice. The thing where you hear a note held for the long time, it just sounds flat and weird if you just like let it keep going without anything that adjusts it. It sounds so artificial. Like, I can just play this for a little bit, right? This actually doesn't sound the worst because of the note structure. I want to hold. We're going to let it get over here for a second. Like, you hear that? You hear how that sounds? Is that like that? I didn't even know how to do that. Like, I was so ready to make something. I just did not have any knowledge on how to do this. Yeah, fully. Like, I get to this. Luckily, since there's not a lot of holds in Blast Man, this actually doesn't sound as terrible as you would think it would. Yeah. No, I did not, like, take it in the wrong way. But then the strings help too, because, like, in the sound font, there's already, like, a modulation in the note. But then, I figured out now, I guess I'll take it into my next song too, but, like, it was such a joy to figure out that you can pitch bend and that you can add wavering to things. But I didn't even realize it on my keyboard. So I use an M Audio keyboard I got for cheap on the secondary market, a Keystation 49, which isn't really that high end of a keyboard, but it does what I want it to. And I don't have piano playing skills. I know my scale. I know most of my chords, but I can't play. I've tried a little. It's too much for my brain with all my other hobbies. I'd have to, like, really commit to learning how to play piano to be able to, like, play in time. So all my music pretty much is me creating on a grid bit by bit. I cannot live perform. I'm sorry. If you want to live perform, that's just me getting my keys and just being like, I'll just slam that keyboard. And yeah, not even close. It's one thing where you can just slide up and down the whole time, but it's another just to be like, look at all these keys. Just slam it. Be like, look at that. I am Music King. Start with my C, chord, and then mess it up later. So I use it for pretty much ear tuning, where I can figure out roughly where a song is when I'm listening to it slow. And you're just like, I'll work up to it. Maybe it's in the sharps and the flats. Just go around. Ba, ba, ba. So the fact that this song even is as it is something I really appreciate. And it took me a while to get right. And of course, you get through this. Like, I listen to this song now, and there's a couple things I would, like, adjust to it. But I can come back to that a little later. Because I want to, like, point out my natural progression as a musician working in a DAW. So I get this done, right? And you're just like, I made music. Everything's here. This song slaps. I love this so much. Look at my child. Look at my baby Blast Man. I am so good. All the volumes are static. I don't even change any of the volumes on the MIDI notes. They're all the same. I was just like, let's just make them sound the same thing. Obviously, parts will never change the volume per individual part. We're just shipping this baby out. So, natural thought. Now that I've made a cover, I just gotta go straight to making my own thing. Yeah, thank you. It is really impressive to make music. Like, I don't mean to undersell myself. They go from, like, 6 weeks in of experience to create this together from ear and not have it sound completely terrible. I was stoked. This still has pep in its step. I still like this. This is the plucky song that can. And I'm very proud of where I started. Like, nothing but respect for Blast Man. I think this song is something I really like. And even though I've gotten way better at balancing everything and using more complex parts and, like, composing techniques in my later Mega Man X covers, this is the origin story. This is where Corso starts, and this is where everything is well and good. So I was just like, yep, I'm gonna just go make my own thing now, because I just like singing to myself constantly in random strings of thoughts coming to my mind later. So I was like, clearly, I gotta make my own thing. So I started making the theme for Gamma that is up and around now. And this I was also pretty happy about, right? There's 2 parts. This came first. This is the main song. Like, this is what I was used to. And the slower theme that was playing at the start of the stream came after just as like a connective tissue for this. So we know this. This is the classic, right? The Gamma theme, next gen Navi and dual processing, and using chiptune now because I've always been chiptuney, and I was just like, I understand. I will not at this point in my musical career make something that's convincingly a Battle Network style song because there's just like intricacies I just didn't have down for the layering and like parts and so much I had to work out. But I was like, I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna make my thing. And yeah, I just gave it a stab where it's like, I'm gonna make an action-y song because I've always liked my action. This is every Corshell hallmark you see in my remixes that aren't just SNES sound font. I have a synth of some kind represented in the chiptune pulse. I have a guitar, and I have them playing side by side, and I have the piece de resistance, the orchestra hits. Boom. I love all of those. Synth, guitar, orchestra hits. That's my DNA. That is how I exist as a person musically. So those will always be around in some fashion in everything I do. Maybe not all three at once, but definitely one of the three. I can't hide away. It's just who I am. I accept this. I accept this is what I'm slotted into, right? So I make this as just like, yeah, this is pretty actiony, right? And it's real easy to just go ahead and go to the Gamma theme and take the main part of the melody and just make it slow, right? So this is what you just hear, where it's just like, I was making a theme for a character that would have been for an old Battle Network project I was working on way back. So it's just like, obviously, if you have a battle theme for the character, they've got to have an overworld theme. That's not really a Battle Network thing. Unless you're talking about Battle Network 4.5. But it's just like, if I'm making a character unique battle theme, he's getting the overworld theme too. It's just gotta be the thing. All good, like, I think of good RPG characters, and especially with unique battles, like you're talking Tales of games, or stuff like Undertale, where they have the slower overworld theme that you hear that leads into a really cool battle variation. I was like, I want that. I want to do that. That is cool. That was the objective for this. So I was like, yeah, let's just take his theme and slow it down. Like 75 here, right? And way different from the other one where it's 150. I literally just halved it. But good news for this, right, when you hear it, is I learned a little now. When you get into the melody, like, I'm gonna let that play on solo once we get there. I just don't want to be dead silent. Listen to this. So you can hear the quivering in the note. This is where Corshell realized on his second song in that there had to be a way to make my note vibrate and like sound nice. Because a flat, like chiptune note is so dead sounding. It is just the worst. Let me just do a little, like, you know, that just sounds blah. And really flat. So I was dumb, and there's a particular part of my keyboard I was not touching at all by this point. So this literally took me, oh man, it was probably like 6 or 7 songs. I'm gonna have to see exactly when it kicked in because I kind of forget by this point. But so like MIDI keyboards have usually multiple dials and buttons to the left of the actual piano roll. And on the key station that I have, it has a very handy modulation wheel, which is what's supposed to add that quivering, right? So I press the thing, and then you can start making it, getting that wave. Hear that? Like, I didn't know about this. It was literally right in front of my face for hours. For actual hours. And I did not connect the dots that I was supposed to use that wheel yet. So I was trying to figure out, how do I make stuff like move? Because I associated with the pitch, right? The pitch is what you gotta be to make it go up and down and have it quiver a bit. So you're digging around on forums, on like Knuckles forums. You're like, how do I do this? And people are like, oh, person having problem with pitch. You can add a pitch envelope to the MIDI window. And I was like, oh, okay. The MIDI window has the solve for this. And there was already the velocity one here, right? And then it was like, oh, you can add a thing. You can add a thing to it. So I was like, add, and you go click, and you figure out there's this little thing called pitch. And it's typically this flat line. I was like, this is how I'm going to do it. This is how I make my notes have a bit of modulation, a little bit of a vibrato, really. Like, let me just kill everybody with my pronunciation. And I was determined to do this. So bit by bit, I would get in real close on those notes, and you can draw your own thing. So like, you can draw dots, right? And you can make them go up and down. Control Z that, please. And I was like, I'm just going to draw as many dots and drag them up and down as I go. And I didn't even think about copy pasting this. I did this for every bit I wanted to hold on. And I manually drew every bit. There's no copy and paste. I did this all per note as I went along. And if you're thinking this is an extremely inefficient way to try to do this, you are very correct. I won't deny it. I was a younger man. There were many things I had to learn. And I just knew the way in my brain that I had down for certain to make my notes do what I wanted them to was to draw it myself. And yeah, I just went spending the whole time doing that. Including with the back half, right? So you see this, and you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to add my MIDI quiver, my little modulation, by drawing everything in myself. And this was like, especially here at the end, the long notes that are a measure a piece here. I was like, well, obviously, if it's a whole note, I can't have it sounding flat. So it's time for Korshal to draw in every bit. Like, imagine holding your control, right? And you're trying to drag everything one by one. Because when you hold, like, you do this by holding control on the keyboard and dragging your mouse along. And I'm just here doing this, like, trying to get every bit up and down evenly. And then afterwards, you can drag stuff a little bit. And making sure everything alternates from up, down, like back and forth, and getting all these pieces. Like, look at this. This is what, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. 18 pieces plus the 19th to try to get it back to the middle so the next note doesn't sound off from the get-go. This took a bit. I learned. The next song, I immediately learned a little bit more. But there was just like this desire to have it sound right. Also, honestly, this is the thing I've never looked into still. But another thing I thought about with Battle Network music was the background, like, chip, tune, pulse, arpeggio. A lot of those games implement into their soundtracks. Alternate speakers, right? Like, if you put on headphones for a lot of Battle Network games, the background arpeggios are going to jump from left to right constantly. If you have it mono, like no headphones, you wouldn't notice. But with headphones on, or just listening to the soundtracks just on like any streaming site now, you notice it. I was like, I got to do that. I'm making a Battle Network song, right? And my solution, because I couldn't figure out how to do it per note, was to make 3 literal tracks. To have it go from left, middle, and right. And just have the dials cranked. Like down here at the bottom. You just have one way off to the left, way off to the right, and one in the middle. So let me just hit this. And back up. If you don't have headphones, I'm sorry. This was probably a much harder point to make. But yeah, it's just like, let's just go ahead and just have something pop up over there. And yeah, my idea, at first I made the melody as all one piece for the arpeggio, so I knew what my notes were going to sound like. And after I realized that I did not have the skill to make one audio track in Reaper be programmed to just bounce back and forth, I was like, I'm just going to copy the track, remove every note from the portion that I don't want this sound to be on, and then just have that happen. This isn't as terrible as that sounds, because the secret here is the arpeggio. It's just 1 bar. This never changes. This structure of note remains exactly the same through the entire song. So all I had to do was get it right once with the very first measure of notes. And then after that, I was like, just copy paste, Control C, Control V, all the way across. I'm such a magic maker. You're like, boom, part's done. I don't need to do anything else. And yeah, that's pretty much what this turned out to be. There's so much I would do now that would at least give it a little more oomph, particularly here at the end. Because, you know, you have the guitar and the chiptune on the exact same note. They just, like, mimic each other. And there was no chords or anything. I figured this out in the next song. So, Korshel makes two songs early in his career, and he ends up taking a little bit of a break. I take a couple months off. Q 2023, I may or may not have started a YouTube channel by this point, and I've uploaded the 2 songs I've just made. I was like, all right, well, gonna throw these out here. I just kind of want to share my stuff. Maybe someone will see them. And then you get the bug. I was just like, what if I do this again? So you start working on your next thing. Also, hint, I'm just going to say that's totally there for no particular reason. Ignore that tab I just skipped. So I was like, Mega Man 11, pretty hip. Let's just go ahead and go back to it. So it's just like, let's go visit the Wily stage of Mega Man 11, the Gear Fortress. This is actually a song that's picked up some steam in recent times. Like, it and a later song, my Mega Man Zero remix that we'll get to, have ended up having the most regular traffic right now. I guess it just took a year for Gear Fortress to pick up some views. But I was like, yeah, time to use some of my knowledge to get further along and start doing this. This is a song I also still really like, but it's got some sauce. So I figured out by this point that pitch bending, you know, from before to make my notes have vibrato. And I was like, what if I can make the guitar sound better by adding like starting strums? So you're a guitar player, right? And you're like, your hands be moving. You're not always going to be right there on the note to have it sound exactly where you need to be. You're going to be traveling. So it's like, what if I add a transitionary pitch curve to the start of notes that make it sound like you're moving to that spot on the string? And it ended up sounding really nice. Like, I'm going to see, like, you see our guitar here, right? So you get that. And there's the secret. That's a little larger than I need it to be. But I appreciate the enthusiasm. So zoom out a bit, and you'll see our secret technique is right there, right? So this is where I started figuring out actually two different things at once. Just put that on solo, please. So, trick one for Korshel is he figured out he can have a guitar lean into the note by just starting below pitch and having it go up. So that was the first thing. Second thing, I figured out that pitch envelopes and their lines have different types of curves. See, the control curve shape is a thing I figured out existed. Because you'll notice on Gamma, let's say we go back to our friend here and we open up a box. These are flat lines, right? Like, it's very flat, which honestly, for a chiptune pulse, pretty on the point. That's kind of what you would expect it to do. But you wouldn't want that on a guitar, right? So I figured out there's curved lines you can do. And by doing curved lines, you make it more of a traveling arc of like the vibration of a guitar string after you hit it. So we can just listen to this fella. And I was like, oh man, this is what I wanted. So I was like, I've cracked the code again. I keep diving further into this vault that is called music creation because I finally had the curve. I also figured out another thing, right? You listen to Mega Man X and a lot of SNES things, and you're just like, wait a second. There's a reverb. There's a reverb going on here. So I figured out I want to add a little extra sound to it. So I put in a reverb. But just a little bit, right? And the way I accomplished this was Reaper has a built-in reverb, like VST you can use. But when I used it on the main track, it sounded like overkill with the dials because I didn't know how to tune it in properly. So I was like, oh, well, I want a little bit of reverb, but it can't be so front and center. So I was like, what if I just duplicate the track, make that the reverb track, and then really turn down the volume here on the knob. So you look at this guy and you're like, all right, sound font, right? But then you have a delay because you want it to kick in a little bit after, and you have the reverb. So let me just solo this guy, and it's going to sound really weird. I'm going to turn it up. Like, this is my sound. I was like, this sounds kind of ugly, though. So I was like, what if I just have it there, and I just put it in. What if I just Control Z, actually? Reset wherever that was. I don't want to ruin my own songs in case I come back to this someday. But I was like, I'm going to put it in here by making it sound soft and having it be slightly delayed as if it's in, like, the room. And this is the only thing I did it for. This is the only reverb I did it for, despite other parts having reverb in, like, Mega Man X's sound font. But the guitar is the most important thing. So it's like, if I get this right, that sells the song. That's the sound I'm going for. There's also another thing I figured out was that harmonies and chords are pretty cool. So this is where I finally got it right. Where it's like another guitar, and it's going to be on the harmonic. I'm going to find a chord to do, and I'm going to use it. And I think there is a harmony line in the original song, so I'm pretty sure I based it off of that. But there's just sometimes... Yeah, my floundering made me figure it out myself, and I'm really proud of me for doing that. It's great what you can do when you're presented with a challenge, and you're just like, I'm just gonna make this work. So for this, I was like just dialing in my chord. And I'm not always the best with my chords. I'm a little more knowledgeable now, but I'm not just snap like, oh, you're telling me C minor harmonic, I got this. Because there's a whole bunch of chords. Music theory is huge. So I was just like, I'm just going to figure out what to have it sound right. Like, a lot of this is just ear, trial and error, slamming my face into the wall. And just getting it right. But I still like that, right? Like, I experimented on this for a while. Just figuring out how to make this sound right. But that extra layer, you're like, yeah, this does sound alright. Didn't mean to click you, buddy. But then you're just like, just that extra depth that's added by having the harmony is so good. I like that. That sounds good. Even if my other parts don't have that. I was like, the main part, 1, have reverb. Make that guitar sing. 2, have a harmony line. Make it sound more full by having nice sounding secondary track to it. This also has started a trend that a lot of my songs do now, which is blending in a second song into the piece, which we can now talk about. Because, you know, we're on Mega Man 11, and then suddenly we go with the Mega Man 10. It's one of the Wily stages. I think it's properly titled Against the Pressure. I think it's like Wily Stage 2? I think it's 2. Pretty sure it's Wily Stage 2. And it's just like, this is one of those things, I'm working on a song, right? And humming it to myself, because if you're covering a song, you probably like the song, and my mind would just jump. It's just suddenly like, you're on this part, right? And you're just thinking about how the structure is of that beginning. Back up slightly more. Hear that? Like the bum 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 bum. And then I was like, man, this one day singing this to myself, my brain's just like bum 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 bum. And it's just like, you pause after you just suddenly steer wildly into a different piece of music, and you're like, wait, those sound similar. And you're like, what if I just start fusing it? So it's like, okay, I can work with this. We're going to keep the main part of the little arpeggio that goes on here. And then you're going to make it go into Mega Man 10's track. And then start doing something a little different here, right? And then you get into where it's just straight up the main, like, melody of Against the Pressure for a bit. And you just, like, add a little more to it, because since it's sticking to, like, an NES limitation for its music, for its chiptune, there's some parts that just aren't there. So you're just like, well, if you're adding something, clearly just add an arpeggio scale. That will always add to the epicness. And I really like that. And people, when they would comment, be like, that's a nice Mega Man 10 bit you snuck in there. And I was like, yeah, look at me. I'm so good at this. Look at what I snuck in. I did it. And then, of course, at the end, you're just like, add another guitar. Like, the distortion guitar of Mega Man X, not here at all until the end. And you're just like, I need a little more oomph. Need a little more emphasis. So it's like, I'm going to add this little guy. This little guy here at the end. This little dude. Instead of in the ending part, where is it? Where is it? Because you get past the main notes. This is the restart. So you get past the holds, right? I think I'm a little too far. I have to back up. Right here. Right at this part, right? Hear that? Just the little notes doing their thing. They do this in the original as well. And you're like, yeah, sure, that sounds nice. But if you're at the end, you're like, one, I want my note to sound a little like the structure to be a little different. because that's how they know this is the end. And 2, it's got to be something a little more full, a little more dramatic. So you're just like, let me just add this bit at the end instead of it, right? So it's like, you've officially introduced another guitar for this part. And you're like, ooh, all right, we got to be getting near the end, because now there's a much deeper, like, taste to it. Right? And he's like, yeah, all right, cool. There's my emphasis. So I took away a lot of stuff out of this, which nowadays, if I could take it into Gamma, I would. Which is why it's like in the thought experiment before this, as I was prepping to do the stream, I was like, I'm going to go ahead and revisit Gamma a bit and figure out what to do. So you go to Gamma, right? And we're going to save these little bits for later. We just go like, we're at the chiptune and we know our modulation and we have our guitar. And we're just like, I'm going to add some reverb. A thing I have now is I've become a patron of the audio company Impact Soundworks. And they have a great VST that I start using a lot in my songs called the Super Audio Cart. And what Super Audio Cart comes bundled with is a reverb engine called SNESverb. It's this little guy. Yeah, lovely little SNESverb, looking like that SNES controller on purpose. And it adds its own reverb that can like bounce back and forth. And I've started using this for a lot of myself, just because it's pretty much plug and play. And you just start getting that echo in it. So you can hear that between that. Like you go back and you go right here. And you notice it when it has no like echo to it. Right? So you go back and you listen to this again. And you're like, yeah, that adds a little bit to it. And then say you're the guitar now, right? Down here, you're jamming. We go back and we get our guitar. Also, the sample, since this pulls from a different GBA game, is really short. It's not a long sample and it's not great for sustained notes, but you know, you're a learner back then. You only really notice it on the long notes. You hear how that starts? But yeah. So you hear this, right? So you're like, what if I go to Gamma now and add in some of, not even any note quivering, but just some startups on the bends to swing up into the notes. And it just sounds so much more different. And echo, of course. And you're like, yeah. That sounds pretty good. And another thing, say I've harnessed my power of realizing you can do a harmonic like accompaniment to the song, and that I decide, you know, the beginning of Gamma sounds well and good with its single line of notes, but that you're aiming for a little bit more now. So say now you get into the note window and you figure out the harmonic line to the end of the song, so then there's a little more fulfillment to it. This didn't take me too long. I've gotten way better figuring out by ear a harmonic line naturally. Like, you just work with it enough. You just kind of figure out what to do. And then you add a little bit of oomph to it. So let me go back and play just this for you. Right, we know this. So there's that. But then you add a little bit. There's actually another thing I added to this, because you notice there's no longer a pitch here. But that's just a hint of what's to come. It's still going to sound good, though. And you're like, yeah, that sounds way better with hindsight. Like, we'll go back to this now, right? And you're like, man, that seems pretty good. That's a glow up. I've officially gone onto reality television for my makeover, and this is me after the makeover and the big reveal to my adoring fans. Is that little bit of adding a little bit of echo, a little bit of pitch buildup, and a little bit of harmony. And it's just like transformative. But there's more. This is going to be my son for a bit. Actually, in Blastman 2, if we're talking about echoes, I went and let's get rid of my imaginary MP3. So we knew before how we didn't have any sort of echo to it before, right? So I, on my tracks, have all of the SNES verbs that you need here. Let me just get up a bunch of silly windows. Boop, boop. Look at all these. Look at all these pop-ups. Let's just turn them all on for a second. For like what that can do to add a little bit more to this guy. And let me go back, right? Oh yeah, my metronome's still going. Boop. Just that, having a little bit of echo does so much. And you're like, it's no longer flat. This is nice. I like this. So, Korshu's doing pretty well. He's officially made some songs he's enjoyed. And he's just like, it's time to pursue a higher craft. I have spent the money to buy a license of Reaper. It's now time to spend money to get some actual instruments. And so, we start our next project of Gravity Beetle. Or as my project file likes to go off of the Japanese name, Beat Bood, because that's really funny. So we get here now, and we get to introduce some instruments I love to death. Like, these are things I still use because of the sound. The biggest introduction is up here at the synth, and over here at the guitar. So what I spent the money for at this point in time was to get the Korg M1 Legacy. This is my favorite thing. I love this. I don't utilize it nearly well enough for everything it has. But this is Korg's M1 keyboard just as like software with a bunch of their presets. So if you go into it, you're just like, they have a bunch of combination things. Let me just clear some of this. So they give you a lot of crap. That's a bunch of combinations of things. And they also have individual cards of like all the expansion packs this thing had. There's so many different things. And there's a bunch of like cartoons from the 90s and just like Weather Channel stuff. There's so many things on television that use this keyboard, this electronic keyboard and its many presets to make music. It's great. It's got a lot of nostalgic sounds. If there's anybody, I should have taken a note of what particular instrument it was so I could switch to it and just prove my point. But say you're in like the mood for the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, like the Goofy cartoon, and you remember Robotnik's theme of the, like, let me pause my music for a second so I can just sing on the fly. But you just hear the music of like the strings, and there's like bum 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 bum. Like that silly electronic keyboard is one of the presets on here. There's so many things that pulled from it. And you're just like, yeah, the Korg rocks. I really like the Korg. And I really like this particular synth, the Power of M. Let's see, I am on my key station. Yeah. Ooh, something. Oh, my guitar's on at the same time. Yeah, it is a very rat sounding song. There's a lot of great presets to the Korg and like combination of blends. I really hope I can just like utilize it proper. But this right here, I love the Power of M. It's a great synth. This synth is so much to my heart. So I used this a bunch, and the other big guy that's introduced on this, keep on playing again, is going back to Impact Soundworks. I already know I said I got the Super Audio cart. I didn't get that in this song. I bought a thing before that of my favorite friend, the Shreddage series of guitars. And it all starts here with the Hydra. This guy is a goat. I really like this. I own multiple of their guitars now because they kind of have some different like flavor profiles to the sounds. But this was like the one front and center where you're just seeing advertisements where they're just like, check out this guitar. Works with the free Contact player. Because I didn't own Contact 7 at the time because it's kind of expensive when you don't get it on sale. And I was like, I want a guitar I can use with a free VST platform. Yeah. So I spent the money to get this. All these things are like not on sale, like 100 to 150 typically. But I was like, I'm going to do it. This is what I want to do. I want a guitar. I heard some samples. I was like, I'm sold. This is the guy I'm going to get. So I went and got this guy. And then you just get the like shred with it, right? Like. Sorry, I can't actually play the keyboard. This would sound way better as a demo. And it's like, yeah, this sounds great. I love this. So I was like, I'm going to finally materialize into the composer I was always meant to. Where we're going to add the synth and we're going to add the guitar. We're going to have them together at the main part of the song, right? There's a lot of build up with the synth. I should actually let this just be heard. But you hear the synth and it leads into the guitar and you see the little squiggles. That's more of my pitch bending. I was learning so much by this point. Way to go, Korshal. You have this and you're working up to the big thing. There's actually another thing I like, but I'll point that out in a second. And you're like, yeah. This is the sound I want. And it's like, mwah, chef's kiss. The thing I like how I figured out here too was that Gravity Beetle has notes that just like legato slide into the next piece. And I couldn't just make the MIDI player on Reaper do that by default. I think some other DAWs might allow you just to legato slide into notes without having to set it up. But you have to program it in Reaper. So my solution here was just to draw curved line. I was too busy staring at my wonderful work into making the thing, right? Like make a bunch of dots, use it's called like Bezier, and make that curve downward until the end of the note and then snap back for the note where it winds up. Because you can make the pitch go so many steps, like so many full keys out of place, depending on how far you drag down the grid. So it's like, all right, I'm just going to have it get into the slide because when it goes down all the way, it just blends into the next note. And you're like, yeah. So you hear that, right? And the synth does that too in the start, like right around here, where you see it drops down. It actually drops down even slower because of the way it holds its notes. And you're like, yeah, that sounds good. I like that. And then just kind of like get through your first loop and you're like, okay, if I'm covering Gravity Beetle, which is definitely my favorite song from Mega Man X3, I gotta like add in some spice. So you have it loop through once normally, right? And your artistic brain is like, I gotta do more. There's gotta be something else that spices it up now. So you're just like, time for a synth solo. My one regret here, during this particular part, is that I have nothing else going on. When you're making it, and you're so new at this, you're just like, the solo, you're gonna really make it stand out by having it be by itself here. But now, especially since like, I don't think this is necessarily a bad part, but I could definitely have improved a bit. Like, this was a fine idea, but I think, especially at my skill level then, there's a little more I could have done to like, especially right there, but then even here, have a little more during the hold notes. They give it a little like, a little more pizzazz, a little more structure and like interest to the music. Although I do like having the guitar go through its little bits here. Like, I like this. Just figuring out bit by bit that you can have stuff shred. And you're like, yeah, that sounds pretty neat. And then you're like, this is the length of the original build-up, right? Like, it's pretty much 1 for 1, but it's like lap 2, so it's doing a little bit different. And it's like, I'm gonna have this kick in for, see the harmony, the chords we were talking about. So it's like, yeah, now I'm gonna get it into doing something a little different here. This is more all by ear stuff. Actually, I'm pretty proud of how this harmony ended up being. And even this part, a little different from the original. You know, you have the notes sound different. You keep people's attention because they're like, it wasn't like that the first time. So you get through that, and then you're just like, let's have it calm down a little bit, right? And I go for like an instrumental take on the 3rd lap. I don't really know if I needed this. I don't mind this. I still like this part. But it's just like, yeah, now we're just gonna have it be the background pieces. Because I just think of, there is a team, I think it's a team, of YouTube remixers who do Genesis sound font remixes. The channel is The Legend of Renegade, and they do crack shot work. And a big staple they do a lot of times is that they'll have a sound font remix of a Mega Man song, like any Robot Master from the classic series, and it goes through the song twice, and then it loops a 3rd time, like the last full loop on the song, and they take out the primary instrument. I think that's cool. I like that. I like it when my songs get deconstructed a bit. So I was just thinking like, I want to do that. So I just have a part that's without the guitar, and just like a little organ, little Korg M1 electronic organ doing its thing, just going around being cute, right? Going back and forth. And then it's like, all right, at the end, I'm gonna have it go and slow down a bit. But all I did was make the notes twice as long. At this point in time, I didn't know very much how to like slow it down. I figured out that you can make it just jump. I didn't know you could like have a transition for the notes. So I wanted to slow down right here during this piece. And like, I didn't realize you could add 2 time markers to Reaper. The fact I figured out you could even do this at all through more tutorial and forum searching felt like a miracle. I didn't yet grasp the fact that you can make 2 markers and have it like one programmed to slow, like continually slow down until the next marker. So during this stretch right here, I have it start fast and then it just drops and you're just like, yep, that's just a hard slow down. and just have it be long. And also, because I don't know if you can actually do this in Hydra, you know, the Hydra rock sound is pretty metal, right? But you want the end to sound softer. Right? So, even though it's the same instrument, my only solution that came to my mind, and is honestly still my solution at this moment, was just to make another guitar. And Hydra helpfully has a bunch of... Excuse me. Wow, it's being shy. It just wanted to show all my presets. There's presets you can pick from. It's hidden. I don't know why Contact's being funky. But there's a bunch of presets you can have that go through it. You actually just don't want to change. You silly son of a gun. I was like, I'm just going to have it be like a spaced out strum instead. Right? And it's like, that's how I'm going to have a nice little ending to this. Let's just have it slow down, have the guitar become a lot softer. Gravity Beetle's been exploded. He's dying in the music VOD. And that's how you do it. So, big takeaway was I figured out and spent the money on like $200-ish to get a guitar and a synth that I liked, right? So, now, this is where we continue to do our project of the night. We go back to our Gamma Redux. And we're like, what if, to add this a little more identity, since it isn't quite Battle Network to begin with, we add the guitar from the Hydra and the Korg M1 Power of M synth. Is what I was thinking. It's actually really funny too, because if you unmute this, the guitar it's actually from Drill Dozer, and the guitar from the Hydra on like, it's kind of like the rock profile that I like, sound really similar. Like, you can just play these two together. You're like, this is the same photo. Just have them side by side. And you're like, this is just the same thing, right? And then you're like, yeah, what can the Korg do to add to this? It actually adds more of an echo to it. I like what it does there. And like, yeah, that sounds pretty good when you start blending sounds together. Just add the full thing too with the strings. And you're like, yeah, turns out blending sounds together is good. This is going to be a upcoming theme of having a chiptune pulse, which is like a synth line, because together they just sound pretty good. What can I say? So, you know, Gravity Beetle gets out there, makes a couple waves on the internet. Embarrassingly. The fun fact with this was this is the first song I uploaded on YouTube that I decided I needed a proper title for, a proper remix name. And I was like, he's a Beetle. He deals with gravity. What's a cool sounding name that will get people's attention? It's a little bit dramatic. And it's just a good fit for a Beetle who makes a black hole, who's like dealing with gravity. And I was like, all right. Weight of the world on his shoulders. It sounds dramatic. I like this. So I make that the tune. I make my music video with that on the title. And then I upload it. And like a day in, somebody comments and they're just like, yeah, I was expecting this to be some sort of weird combination of Nier Automata and Mega Man X3, but this still sounds pretty good. And I was like, wait, what? And then they're like, yeah, Nier. And I was like, I immediately Googled. I was like, Nier, Weight of the World. And it turns out one of that game's most famous songs literally has the title of that track. And I was like, heck, flip. I goofed. I misled people. I just named this song based off of an extremely famous song from a very popular game. And I was like, heck, dang it. I immediately was like, I'm so sorry, frick. And I went and changed the title of the song and the YouTube listing. And I made a pinned comment on that song that you can still find. And I'm like, look, my bad. I didn't realize this was a thing. I'm going to check the names of my songs in the future before I upload them. It was a learning process for everybody. So, never going to do that again. I officially enter the name of my song into Google every time it comes to me before I even make it official in my VOD video editing. Learned a lot. So, with that knowledge painfully gained from Gravity Beetle, we then move on to the next thing, which is Nothing to Hide, the Masked Trio boss song from Bomberman 64. By the way, Bomberman 64 has some real hits. It's not a very long soundtrack, but the boss songs are all so good. I really love it. I love the game because I'm a big Bomberman fan, but I also just really adore Bomberman 64's soundtrack. And this song slaps. It's really nice. The biggest thing when it comes to me learning this is the drum line was a big thing. And this song is the introduction of Super Audio Kart. So you hear this song and it's very in your face. And what does it have? Orchestra hits. So I was just like, I can't just use sound fonts. I want to be able to get something that works. So you can get your orchestra hits. So I, already a fan of Impact Soundworks, was browsing their site and I come across the fabled Super Audio Kart. Oh, right. What? Oh boy, this is an old version that didn't save it. Wow. I was using the SNES verb. I guess I'm caught a little red-handed here. This is what happens. Wow. It was a last change I did at the end, and it's not here. All right, I'm going to show you some live editing because we're going to get this up to speed. So we go to list, right, and you go to add a thing, and we have to add contact. And we're going to find Super Audio Kart, and we're going to load it because we're going to show how this is really going to be. So Super Audio Kart has multiple instruments from 8-bit and 16-bit songs, right? And the way to do it, let me just get this on and I'm going to disable you for a second, is it's all the good stuff is in the SNES list. I like this. There's actually 3 of them. Where is it? It's in Orc. It's just called Orchestra Hit 1, 2, and 3. I am on my station. Good. It's currently trying to beat boop. Yeah, you hear that? Oh, yeah, sorry. Get out of there. Turn that up for a second. I'm at 6. There. This sound. I really like that. And because it has different ones of different kinds, this is a very Bomberman orchestra hit. The multiplayer battle theme from Bomberman 64 uses almost this exact same thing. This is such an accurate recreation of the one that plays in that. I like that. But say you turn on your other layers and you go switching over to the orchestra hits to fill out the sound a bit, right? So orchestra hit 2, get over here, and you scroll down. One more, please. Bam. That's a pretty full sounding orchestra hit, right? So we move that back. I can't believe I never saved this on the final cut. This is how I know it's been a bit. So now you get back to that and you just hear the noise. Right? And you have the introduction of the SNES verb, which I realize how much it like vibrates around, actually. And it's just like, yeah, you just have the noise there. I love their little orchestra hit. It actually sounds more full too, like, so this is one of those samples where the overall note is shorter if it's up higher, just because of how it has to adjust the sound note, right? But if you do like an octave lower and you just drag this bad boy down, like you see it's right here, so you just make one here, and it sounds longer. Bam. Long. So a lot of the good Super Audio Kart orchestra hitting can be when you're on the lower octaves instead of the higher octaves, so that it really has some oomph to it. And since we're already here, we're just going to re-enable the sound font orchestra hit. This is really loud because I need to put it back. There we go. And now it's a bit more balanced. So this is like, I finally bought Super Audio Kart because I want my own orchestra hits. Because I have to free myself someday. I have to break the chains. I have to take control. And another thing that really got me with this song is that it's got some octave shifting note holds is the other big thing. So you're here with the synth, right? And right here at this part, the song shifts up an entire octave. You go from here up to here in one smooth note. And even though I tried to change the settings in the pitch envelope, I couldn't like make it go up a full octave. I just had no idea how. So I had to, you can insert volume envelopes. This is the thing I figured out now, that you can do right click and you're like, oh, envelopes, toggle stuff, right? It's all right here. Here's a little under the hood work. So I went and made a shift envelope, which is your pitch and your notes. And I had to just make it go up a full-blown octave. It goes up 12 semitones, which is an entire octave scale, just so then you can have it go up. And it doesn't sound supernatural, because like the MIDI note doesn't really expect you to try to do this. But this is all I knew how to do. So I was like, yeah, sure, yep, I'm just going to go ahead and work with what I've got. Bam. And he was like, yep, that's what I know. That's what I'm going to do. I still think it works out. It works out well because it's on the synth there. But the guitar does it too later on, right? And I actually like some of the bass line too. Like, I really like this spot. It's just a bunch of notes. I'm going to say, for the record, transcribing this was a pain in the butt. That and the drums, actually. You know how nuts the drums are? Like, look at this. This seems like it's fine, right? You hear how fast that is? Like, this is 200 BPM. I actually have to, like, fuse some of this together. Let me just glue that. And figuring out what to make this do the tick was crazy. This is so fast. And that drum fill was a bunch of work. I had to listen to that so much and so slow that I haven't come out right. I'm glad I found the pace that works though. And I really like the later parts. Because though you're like, synth, right? Synth, do its thing. And I'm on the same logic as Gravity Beetle. So it's like, alright, lap 2, what's going to be different? And it's like, I started with the synth, and then the guitar kicked in at the second half of the song. So it's like, now, the guitar's gonna lead it, right? And then, instead of having it do the same thing for 4 measures, you're just gonna have it do a different part. I like what I did with the guitar here too, because I had it be like the bass line, but it sounds very metal. Like, lead me back to this. I really like how this came out. I think that's a really cool part. I'm proud of me. I'm so good at this. So yeah, you have that, and you're just like, this is a very fast-paced song. Classic thing to do if it's a dire sounding fight to the death. Piano. Right? You're just like, everything's super busy. Guitar's just guitaring. And then you just cut. And then you use that same fill. And it's like, yeah, obviously that's what I gotta do. That and the bass synth, I think I used Korg. I got a different synth right around this time, but I don't think I used it yet. Yeah, just a different, it's not the Power of M. This is a mono synth. I like this synth too. I really like this guy. I think this is a fun sound. I think it really does what I needed to, too. I'm pretty sure that's all I need to do. Yeah. Thank you, Control Z. So you have that, and just carrying the piano along with the string. And I was like, I learned what to do after Gravity Beetle to give that a little bit more oomph, right? And then you finally kick into the solo with the Korg with the Power of M. This is a solo I still like because it did another thing that I start doing in a number of my songs after, which is continuing to build up on dramatic energy by causing a key shift. So you're just like, you know, you got your vibes going on here. And then you like, see my... right here, that combination with the pitch shift, right? That I had to entirely draw myself. Look at this. Be very proud of this line of Korshel attempting to draw a straight line upwards. A little botched, but the effort is there. I did what I needed to. So you draw this line to go up, right? Let me just put you on solo and the guitar on solo. So you're dooting around and you're doing your solo piece. And you got to build up to the next part. The long hold shifting up allows you to go up a semitone. And you're like, that's how we put the punctuation mark on this remix, is by having it go up one. And then, same thing in the first phrase of the song, where the guitar started doing its own different thing. Where you're just like, you hear this part, right? And you're like, all right, pass one, establish the pattern. The audience knows what they're gonna hear. And so when you go back, and you're like, all right, same thing, right? And then you hear that note right there. And you're like, wait a second, this is different sounding now. And it's like, yeah, that's how you get them hooked. That's the secret. You just do something a little bit different, and everyone goes wild. Everyone loses their mind. And it just means you can then go into the final reprise of the melody, except now, like, different orchestra hit pattern. And of course, it's the guitar, because now it's more dramatic. And then at the very end, where you do the guitar do the shredding, this is another thing I like, right? Like, it's just the bass before. This is a neat sound, by the way. So you do that, right? And you're like, well, now it's time for the guitar to come in and shred with them. And I like that. I think that worked out really well. I think I have a smart brain that sometimes realizes certain sound blends are good. So that was a delight. I really enjoyed doing that. This is a song I still really listen to quite a bit. And I was just like, yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was so good just having it do that. It was such a good little idea. With the orchestra hits and everything, and you're just like, wait, sometimes you're just right on top of the ball. This is what you want. This is the goods, right? And something that made me really happy with this song is I remember getting a particular comment that shined to me. Was somebody was just like, it is 2023 and somebody made a new Bomberman 64 remix. What a day. Something along that line. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad you dug it. Multiple people are just like, yeah, the thing's cool. I started my day like in YouTube Studio because I gotta watch over my children. And you see like an average view time, right? And then I start going through my day, and later on, I see the average view time jump because somebody spent several hours listening to this. Thanks, Lux, for letting me know I gotta wake up for a bit. And it's just like, I figured out what made people jam. I was like, someone just spent hours listening to this. That was so fulfilling. It's just like, thanks. I've really enjoyed knowing somebody got a kick out of this. So this song, pretty special. I like this. So riding off that high, I was doing pretty good. Yeah, honestly, by song number 4, this would be? No, song number 5. Because there was Blast Man, Gamma, Gear Fort, Gravity Beetle, and then Mass Trio. And yeah, I would say by this point, I was like, making music is fun. Like, I had my break between Gamma and making Gear Fortress. So I'm making a couple more tunes, and you're really going like, wow, I can make stuff. I can make stuff good-ish. Like, I make things I enjoy hearing, and I want to share them. So I was like, I just gotta keep doing this. And I started, at the same time, still a gamer. I'm playing Mega Man ZX off of the Switch Mega Man 0 and ZX collection, because ZX is one of the darlings from my childhood. And I get through the game, and you're like, man, there's a song I always loved. And that's the Omega Zero cameo fight with the song that's super famous from its original source, with the Mega Man 03. So I was like, I gotta start making Cannonball. And it honestly just kind of mainly starts out as like a cover, right? Like, you just get this thing. And I was like, I just kind of want to make this song and figure out what I'm doing with it later. This song for a while was like the hit. This is a benchmark. This was my first song to hit 1,000 views, which for me is a pretty significant margin. It still honestly is at this point in time, at time of recording. So this is the song where everyone started finding it eventually, because they were just like, oh, this is pretty cool. I don't know if I entirely deserve it, because literally like this first half, it's just like a remastered version of Cannonball Hard Revenge. I'm gonna say it. It mainly is just the same type of instruments, like same sound profiles mainly, and just the same pattern. But this is another time I was making it because I like this song, so I was like, I'm just gonna start covering it and kind of see where my brain goes. And just like Gear Fortress, I'm in the middle of doing it, and it's like, oh wait, this one structure sounds similar. It's the guitar was the main part, where it's just like, you just hear the, where is it? Is it this? Yeah. And it's like this, I went, this sounds kind of like Trap Factory. Because of the start. And you're like, oh, all right, I'm just gonna start blending these together. So you get the setup because you're using the organ, the electronic organ from Cannonball's main theme, and you're just like, let's just put it to Trap Factory. But not just put it to Trap Factory, we're gonna start putting it to Cannonball happening in the middle of Trap Factory. And I thought this was a really good idea. I still think this is a good sounding idea. I'm proud I thought of this. Because like nobody else thought of this combination, apparently. And I was like, I just gotta do this. I'm just gonna like slide upwards. Just jamming this for a minute. So like just raw Trap Factory, right? And then you get back to the build-up of Cannonball right here, right? So this part, right? And then you just go here for the same thing on a different chord. So you have that, right? Let me just undo some volume stuff. There we go. So I can still be heard as I'm talking. I had to shift Trap Factory. It's in a different key. It's not in its default key. I shifted it into the key that matched Cannonball. And when you line them up, their notes line up in a lot of chords. And you're just like, yeah, this sounds pretty good. And then you get to the end, that's the combination of the two. And I thought that sounded really nice. Like, something possessed me to do this day. And you can hear that, like the two different parts, right? So you have the main part of, let's see, this is, where's my main lead? It's got to be right here, I believe. This is the really famous part of Cannonball. Everyone loves this part, myself included. This part is goated. So, right, so you have that, right? So you realize now you can get the main melody of Trap Factory, which is also really great. I really like this a lot, actually. Trap Factory is such a banger. This is the other song I love out of ZX. Right? So you're just like, oh, now I'm just going to put chocolate with my peanut butter. And you just start doing the two things together. Because now you have the guitar doing it. Oh, sorry. This is the wrong guitar. There we go. I have to get my parts right. So now instead of the organ that was there before, you're having the guitar go. And since Trap Factory does a repeat of its main end, you're like, this is the shift up, the mix up on the end, right? So you get the first part, just actual Cannonball, right? And you're like, I'm going to change it right here at this note and go up. And it's like, okay, now we know it's different because it's a different build-up. So like we go back to our funny little main melody and it's just like, cool. We know what this sounds like normally. And you just lead into the combination of the two. Definitely my favorite part is when everything comes together here at the end. When I heard this for the first time, when I was making this, I was like, this can work. This is not a bad idea. This is where my brain went, this sounds good. This is a thing I should do. And he's just like, yeah, just add everything else too. I actually really like the Trap Factory arpeggio that goes on with the synth. I think this is neat. And it's funny how much of a lead in it is too. Like, you know, you already have an active background part in Cannonball, right? Pretty busy. A lot of momentum is here to keep up the energy of the fact that you're literally in the final boss song of Mega Man 03, right? So then you have it here where you're just like, this is the same type of thing. This is actually something I really like. So this is the main part here in this part. During like the build up, right? Leading up to the organ kicking in for the melody. But that same structure of notes can just work during Trap Factory. So this is still a Cannonball piece in the middle of the start of Trap Factory. And I think that's really neat. And then once it gets past that, it starts kicking into the proper arpeggio that Trap Factory does. And I think this is really neat. Like, I keep using that word, but this is a piece that captivates me, including the final piece. This string right here is very famous for Trap Factory, in my mind. I think about this part a lot when it comes to Trap Factory's melody. They just have them together. Oh, go back down. But yeah, this song became a hit, and everyone started viewing it. And this is like my first major surge in people who started to follow my music. I was like, this is the one. This is gonna be my famous song that everyone knows me for until I do something else. And it's kind of funny now because it's been eclipsed since then. Like, it had pretty consistent views for a while. And now my Zero remix kicked in. That was way better. Like, well, I wouldn't say way better. I think both songs are pretty good. But this was the piece that made, like, got enough eyeballs on my stuff that was like, oh, okay. People are going to pay attention to this. This is going to be how it is. I see. I understand now. And it felt pretty good. So now we have this guy. So this is another sound font. Except with this one, I had to primarily rip the samples myself directly off of like Mario Golf and Mario Tennis. There's some tools that let you just rip open that bad boy and get all the wave files, and then you just gotta plop them into like a sampler and just go from there, and then just make it a thing. There is a really, really good sound font mix of a Mario Golf Game Boy Color song, of the Lynx Club song, that is like the whole reason I even felt like doing this. Like, I gotta make a major shout out. It's so fleshed out. They added parts that don't exist to the original to make it sound more full and like it came out of Mario Golf 64 proper. And it's so good. I wish this song was quite as good as that. I'm pretty happy with how it came out with the guitar and everything, but it's not quite as good as that. So that song is the whole reason I felt like doing this, fully gonna admit. And alright, if that's the one, red and green, look it up. You see that? Everybody, you see that right there? Red and green. They are great. That song is great. I still look it up now and again because their channel deserves the view, and that remix is good. So I like that. And I like this still. I gotta say, I have a really big soft spot for the composer of the soundtrack, Motoi Sakuraba. Great guy. Makes great music. Stuff from the early thousands. Tales of Symphonia. Fabulous. Mario Golf, and especially Mario Tennis. Fabulous. Like, Mario Tennis sounds way more like an action RPG that it has any right to. The music is so intense. Like this. Like, even as an imported sample sound font from the game files, the dude decided the final match of the Game Boy Color game against Mario should be this. And this is great. You're like, why? The Game Point music is really famous for Mario Tennis because it's so high energy. It's just literally a battle song, like a default enemy battle song from a Tales of title. You could tell me the Game Point song is actually Tales of Symphonia's first default battle track? I would have believed you. You can put it right in there. It's all the same. So it's just like, my man has the juice. And there's something really distinct about the instrument choices he made back then. Yeah, you're leading me right to my next point. I will continue to love my man. There's one thing I can say from a place of love about Sakuraba. And I have mentioned this on different streams when music has come up. My poor man has really leaned into his like epic orchestral VST. And because of that, he goes really grandiose a lot and really, really brass heavy. And it blends in. And like, I can remember Lee's tunes because all the parts are very distinct and sound separate from each other, but he uses so much like note swelling for a lot of his current things that I can't remember it. Like Tales of Arise, I could not tell you a single song. Like, I remember a little bit of some of the pieces that use string, like violin melodies as the main part, but anything that's supposed to be like, welcome to the Grand Vista. Look at the backdrop that you're walking into. Look at this big land. And it's all just notes. It all just blends in. Honestly, the later Mario Tennis stuff, like Tennis Aces on Switch, it's all very blendy, except when he takes out the saxophone. When the MIDI saxophone kicks in. I remember that part. That part's pretty good. So this here, there's one thing I wish I'd done a little bit different. Right at this part. Like, it gets to the end of the song, and it's like, I want something that builds up a little bit more. And in Mario Tennis 64, there's some like organ arpeggio stuff, like just up and down the scales that happen. So I wanted that too. So I was like, I'm gonna make a little bit myself. And it's fine. I don't think it really takes a person out of listening to it because it's quieter. Like, I'm pretty sure I quieted down. Oh, I only did a smidge. Well, alright, I did like half a decibel. But I would have changed this slightly now in like modern chorale composing. I realized I could have worked on the sound a little bit better. It's still good. Like, it's still enjoyable, I'd say. But I would definitely tweaked it a little now. I would probably do more of the soundtrack again someday. There's a lot of things I want to do, but only so much time. Like, music is something I want to be able to work on and not just like burn out on. So, you know, if you follow my channel on YouTube, I do it roughly 3 weeks, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less, depending on how hard I hit the inspiration zone. And someday, now like I pay more attention to what people have subscribed to and I've gained mainly a Mega Man based following, which pretty based, guys. Gotta say, you understand what music pops. Mega Man's where it's at. Thank you. But because of that, doing like Mario Tennis stuff again, has kind of been on the back burner. If I find time to sneak it in alongside whatever else I'm doing and give people like a surprise 2-for-1 in a 3-week span of like, boom, song people have generally like pointed me towards doing, but also passion thing, more Mario Tennis, I'll sneak it in. I just gotta find time with all my other hobbies, so oops. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I don't really have any other notes to talk about with this particular song. I didn't pitch bend. I didn't do anything fancy. This is just the thing I made. I just kind of did, right? So that's that. So next comes up is another nostalgic trip I wanted to hit. It's Loading Contact. It takes a little bit, but it'll be here. And I really like Sonic Advance on the Game Boy Advance, right? You know, name kind of lives up to it. And there is one point from Sonic Advance that I really remembered as a kid because it like terrified me. And it's the Metal Knuckles boss in like the Angel Island zone, like Sky Island, whatever it's called. I don't fully remember right now. I'm sorry. But you get there and there's a pink Knuckles. He's like magenta off color, not quite red. And it has its own song because it's supposed to be like, whoa, Knuckles, why are you fighting me, bro? What's up? Why we have a beef? But you're still going to fight him, right? And you give him enough hits and he starts exploding and he turns silver and his eyes are like wavy, distorted lenses flashing colors. This song kicks in and you're just like, uh-oh, something's weird. And then he starts barfing giant missiles at you. It's hilarious. These missiles are longer than he is, and he like goes full jaw open because these are big. It's comically large missiles. But as a kid, you're just like, I have no idea what's happening. Knuckles turned into a robot. The song's gotten very dire. He's barfing missiles at me. It's amazing. It was an amazing first time experience that freaked me out. And the song is amazing. I really like this. And I knew I wanted a good bass line. Because like, the song starts in Sonic Advance and it's just the bass synth going. So you're just like, I gotta find something that hits the right tune, right? I'm gonna show it here. There is a synth that is available for free that I found. Loaded up here. The Tyrell N6. I had to dig for this. You had to find, it's on like a website for free, legally, completely legal, that you can find this baby. But it's like hard to get to because it's specifically on that website. And the default language is like Spanish or like Portuguese. It's not English. So I really had to dig to find this guy and to find the different packs that are there that you can download for it. But the basic boogie bass is a thing I really like. And this is a song also where I discovered the modulation wheel is a thing that exists and that I can use it to change the sound of the guitar. But first, I'm going to let us hear our bass synth, because I really like this. I was like, this is my sound. This is how you kick it in. Of course, it's mainly the same thing, right? Until you get near the end. Because I think in the original, it's like, I don't know if it's an actual synth instrument or if they're using the built-in Game Boy chiptune processor, but it's real low. I think it might be a chiptune pulse at a certain frequency in the original. I wanted that vibe as the synth. So this really scratched that itch. I really like this sound a lot. So you have that, and I finally took a look at those funny little knobs on the left of my key station and went, wait, modulation, how does that work? So you'll notice I have two things, actually. I figured out there is the pitch wheel, which is the thing right next to the modulation, and there's the actual modulation wheel. So let's turn this on. We know we have our guitar. Right? And you notice it sounds a little different, right? Turn this up for the class. And you're like, it's the same profile as the Gravity Beetle one, I think. I will double check. Load it up. Yeah, Cosmic Lead layer. I really like Cosmic Lead. It's one of my bread and butters with the Hydra. I use it a lot. It's a good sound. And the Beetle one didn't sound like that at all, right? Or in Cannonball. And that's because there's this funny knob. So here it is. You turn it down, right? This is with it off. I figured out there's a wheel we can do. Right? We talked about that with the chiptune pulse before, with the modulation. But this was the song in my career. I was like, oh, wait. I can just enable that. This is also, when I figured out that was a function, I was like, holy heck. There's a second wheel that does more stuff. So I finally figured out you can do pitch bending too. So the modulation wheel, like, stays where you put it. So you can go low with it off, or you can go up and stay high. The pitch resets back to the center. It's like basically on like a lever, like a spring, and it'll go back. You can make it go. It's like, I can just start doing that. And because I figured out you can do that, right? It's like, okay. So I ran into a problem. You know, I've stated I can't play music live. If I can't play the keyboard at the same time that I want to make a melody, how was I supposed to make this in place? Like, how was I supposed to record this when I draw my MIDI notes? So I figured out through helpful Google searching of the Cocos whole like forum again, that there was a method to the madness, and that people suggested using MIDI overdub. So overdub means you can keep the piece you currently have, but then you can add more to it. So say you aren't adding any new notes to it, but you just want to add the modulation or the pitch bend, right? So you can cause it to record new things while the main notes stay, and you can just man the wheel. You can just get behind the wheel, and you can just have it do new stuff. So because of that, I was able to start adding bends. And I started doing that for my note transitions because I wanted that really warbly sound. I wanted the moment to be freaky, because the tune was supposed to be like, you thought Knuckles was real. Knuckles is a robot and he's trying to murder you. So it's just like, this is already kind of a crazy scenario. So we're gonna have a real warbly guitar, and it's just gonna do deep spins off of that wheel. And I like that sound. It sounds good, right? Yeah, we needed the menacing. So when you can have that hold on the notes, I wanted deep bends. Don't mind this. A little bit of an oops. Still learning a bit here, right? Still figuring that out. But I thought it worked out really well for the vibe. And then to get the original part here at the end. Like, this is a pretty short and sweet song. It gets to the point, like how you need it to. And then you're just like, yeah, let's just have it go on the solo with some long holds. I like this still, actually, with the long holds there on the synth brass being like the background with the organ and everything. And that classic little string. I think I used a chip pulse just for the long note trills that go on. Oh, actually, what instrument is that? All right, yeah, yep. Yeah, it's a bunch of saws. Because I wanted to get something similar to how the original does that. So yeah, I figured out a lot of things. Learning the power of the modulation wheel and the pitch wheel was a blessing. I felt very proud and very capable when I figured out this was the thing I could do. And to go back to this, now I can reveal what I was doing here. So instead of using the pitch, you can start using, where's my wheel? Mod wheel. You can start using the mod wheel. Look at that. You start doing that as your wavering instead, right? That's pretty neat. I'd say so. And if I were to ever revisit Last Man, because we still had him open here, the big thing now, we know I can add modulation to a piece I never had one on. So we can just go to that modulation wheel, and we can make sure we're on overdub, which we are. So we know the original, right? Flat notes. Now you can hear it waver when you turn that wheel way up. But then what if there's a controlled method to the madness? So you just like revisit it now. This is something I can do. This is modern music creating for my process. You get to see where I can make the notes of like my guitars through the MIDI grids. I draw it all up. And then I man the wheel and you're like, time to record. And you're like, yeah, that sounds like a piece if I've ever heard it. I am opening up the wrong thing. So we go to just like this. You're like, let's see a new thing. And you show the mod wheel. And you're just like, now I can listen to this. Sometimes, I don't know if this is just a thing in my computer, but sometimes the mod wheel starts it a little late. Like right here seems a little early, right? So you have to grab everything sometimes, and you have to make sure your grid's not just going to explode from you trying to drag it over. And you're just like, I need to shift this. So you're just going to do a little bit of that. I don't know why my input, like when I play it, it sounds like it's at the right spot, but then it's just out of place a bit. So you do this, and then you can listen to it. And you're like, yeah, That seems pretty swell. Pretty well and good. And I know I am pretty much getting to the near end of my typical streaming time, so apparently I need a part 2 list. Because I'm not even halfway through my songs. I have a lot to talk about. Future stream coming up for later. But to show you a little bit more composing magic. So we have our modulation, right? So we're going to add another thing. We're going to make it the pitch. So we go to Gear Fortress, right? Blink us back into existence. We're going to copy the string of notes there. And you're just like, what if I add a little bit of that on like the high notes? So now you're doing this, right? Let me line up, please. There we go. Right, that doesn't seem so bad when you hear it like that. Boop. So that's how you start updating these things. So now you see what my general process goes through nowadays for some of these, where first you make the MIDI map, then you figure out where your like drag ups on your pitches, the lead and the notes, if you have a guitar or a synth, mainly guitar. Guitar is the main thing you want to do that on. Synths, you don't really need to do so as much unless you really want to like legato it. But you have your build up for your guitar parts, do the little squeals, and then you overdub into your modulation, and you cue in your parts, and then you drag it into place because your modulation wheel is going to record it early for some reason, and then you just start getting a little bit more noise. Yeah. So then, you know, with the gamma piece, you get to see all that there. And I could even do I don't think I did any modulation on this. If you don't overdub the modulation, Reaper will remember a particular spot that you set the wheel on, and that will be it, right? And that will just kind of be where it's set. So say you have this. Oh, wait, I need to enable it. There we go. Obviously, I wouldn't want it on max. But you can kind of figure out what sounds good for this. Right? So, you just turn on both of these. You make sure they are on overdub. Burp, burp, burp. Sneaky. Very sneaky. And then you're like, let's just record this for a bit. And like, okay, good. Now it remembers. Now it's got it recorded. So you can put that into the rest of this. Also, another hidden part, because I'm here now. I can reveal how I was adding. Actually, I don't know if this is even the same bass. Oh, it is. It is the boogie bass. So now you can add it to this too. We're going to end this stream listening to this of like, what if I just started reduxing gamma more? So you're like, we can add a new bass to this. Pretty cool. So we have that. You can add these to it, right? And I actually think the chiptune pulse complements the boogie bass pretty well. I like this sound. Right? So, well, I'm not going to reveal everything else. We also add the there's one instrument I haven't talked about yet. I'm not going to show that in my Redux example. But we do have everything else, including some good old audio cart here. So we just have that, where you have like the GBA sound font orchestra hit. Then you can add the audio cart. You just put them together to sound cool. Layers. So, how we're going to finish this night is giving this one more listen of the chorus back then versus a chorus now. So, you know, you have like the start of this, right? I mean, just from the start. So they're very lovable, very plucky, right? So now let's hear what some of these do for it. You work so hard, computer. Thank you. Pretty good, right? I enjoy that a lot. That is a good sound. That is a sound that pleases my soul. Turn that down. Now I can do some outro stuff. So yeah, I got nowhere close covering everything I did. At least not for stream 1. But it was a lot of fun getting to talk about this and letting it go on for a bit. Hopefully, there was some useful knowledge shared. Hope people enjoyed just seeing some basic music creation 101, right? And getting to kind of hear about stuff that I've gotten into, what I do. You're welcome. Yeah. But I intend on resuming this again. Because I have plenty more songs that I want to do. And I want to be able to cover them. And I want to get on YouTube. So we're going to be back at this again someday. But for now, I thank you all for sticking around. Whoever's listened to letting a silly little man ramble about his music. And I'll catch you guys later. I hope everything goes well. Let me do one more thing for the people. For the people. Well, we'll drop this out, letting this music play for just a minute or two on the starting screen without the font. That's how I'm going to close it out. So, we'll give it one last loop around, and Cordial Valid. We'll check you guys on the next stream.